Alex Martinez stared at the calculus problem on his desk, tapping his pencil against the worn wooden surface. The autumn wind rattled his bedroom window, and the desk lamp cast a warm glow across his homework. It was just another Tuesday night in Columbus, Ohio, but this particular math problem would soon change the course of human history. Ms. Linda Baker had handed out the assignment with her usual cheerful smile. "This one's special," she had said, her eyes twinkling behind her round glasses. "It might seem simple at first, but give it some real thought." Now, 6 hours later, Alex was beginning to understand what she meant. The problem looked innocent enough. Design a container that would hold the maximum volume while using the minimum amount of material, considering multiple variables including cost efficiency and practical construction limitations. But as Alex dug deeper, he discovered layers of complexity that made his head spin. His room was a testament to his efforts. Crumpled papers filled his wastebasket, and sticky notes covered his wall with half-finished equations and rejected approaches. His younger sister Olivia had poked her head in earlier, taken one look at the chaos, and quickly retreated with a sympathetic yikes. Alex pulled up the sleeves of his faded blue hoodie and reached for his fourth cup of hot chocolate. The digital clock on his nightstand showed 9:47 p.m. His father, Dr. Martinez, was still in his basement lab, working on his quantum computing project. The gentle hum of the experimental machinery drifted up through the floor vents, a constant background noise in their household. The teenager picked up his notebook, flipping through pages of calculations. Something about this problem felt different. Ms. Baker's problems were always creative, but this one seemed to dance just beyond his grasp. Every time he thought he had the answer, another variable would pop up, forcing him to reconsider his entire approach. He drew another diagram, this time focusing on the cross-section of his theoretical container. The shape began to take form, not quite a cylinder, not exactly a cube, but something in between that seemed to follow natural patterns he'd seen somewhere before. In nature, maybe, or was it in one of those documentary videos about space that he loved to watch? The sound of footsteps on the stairs broke his concentration. His father appeared in the doorway, lab coat slightly rumpled, with the excited look he always got when he made progress with his research. "Still working on that math problem?" Dr. Martinez asked, adjusting his glasses. "You know, I might have something that could help you visualize it better. I just finished calibrating the new modeling program on the quantum computer." Alex's eyes lit up. His father rarely invited anyone to use his precious equipment. "Really? You'd let me use it?" "Why not? It's getting late, and sometimes a fresh perspective is all you need. Besides, the visualization matrix might help you see patterns you missed on paper." Standing up, Alex gathered his notes and textbook. His father's quantum computer was something of a legend in the scientific community, a prototype that approached problems in ways traditional computers couldn't. What Alex didn't know, as he followed his father down to the basement lab, was that this simple homework solution session would trigger a chain of events that would reach far beyond their quiet suburban home. As they descended the stairs, neither father nor son noticed the slight fluctuation in the quantum computer's auxiliary display, nor the brief surge of energy that pulsed through its circuits, reaching out into space in ways that Dr. Martinez's research had only begun to theorize about. The basement lab hummed with energy as Dr. Martinez typed commands into his quantum computer. Blue light from multiple screens cast dancing shadows on the concrete walls. Alex sat beside his father, watching in amazement as his homework problem took shape in the three-dimensional display. The visualization matrix works by mapping mathematical concepts into spatial relationships, Dr. Martinez explained, adjusting several parameters. It might help you see the problem from angles you hadn't considered before. Alex leaned forward, fascinated by how his simple container problem transformed into a shifting geometric display. The shapes morphed and flowed, showing optimization possibilities he hadn't even imagined. But something unusual was happening with the computer. Every time Alex input a new variable, the quantum processors pulsed with unexpected energy. Deep within the machine's complex circuits, microscopic fluctuations began creating patterns that defied conventional physics. The computer wasn't just processing the problem, it was broadcasting it. Unknown to the father and son, each calculation sent ripples through subspace, carrying Alex's homework problem far beyond Earth. The quantum signals bounced through dimensional barriers, riding waves of probability that Dr. Martinez's research had only theorized about. In a library on a distant world, an alien scholar's research terminal suddenly lit up with new data. In a university floating in the rings of a gas giant, emergency alerts flashed across holographic screens. Throughout the galaxy, academic institutions received what they interpreted as a mathematical challenge from an unknown civilization. Back in the basement, Alex was making progress. "Look, Dad. If we adjust the ratio here, the volume increases without requiring additional material." He pointed to a shifting section of the display, unaware that his explanation was now being studied by thousands of alien mathematicians. The computer's cooling systems worked harder as the quantum processes intensified. Dr. Martins noticed the unusual power readings, but attributed them to the complex calculations. "The system's running a bit hot," he mentioned, "but it's handling the load well enough." Upstairs, Olivia was getting ready for bed when she noticed the house lights flickering. She walked to the basement door and called down, "Dad, the lights are doing that weird thing again." "It's fine, honey," Dr. Martin had shouted back. "Just some power fluctuations from the computer. We'll be done soon." Alex worked late into the night, unaware that his homework session had become the most discussed topic in galactic academic circles. The quantum computer continued broadcasting, sending each new attempt and calculation across the stars. In the Centauri Academic Institute, Dr. Zix 427 assembled an emergency research team. The alien mathematicians' tentacles waved in excitement as they studied the incoming data. What appeared to be a simple optimization problem was challenging their fundamental understanding of mathematics. By midnight, Alex had filled several pages with notes. The quantum computer's display showed promising results, though the final solution still eluded him. "Maybe we should call it a night," Dr. Martin suggested, noticing his son's tired eyes. "You can come back to it tomorrow." As they shut down the system, the last quantum pulses rippled through space. The homework problem had been fully transmitted to every major academic institution in the galaxy. In the coming days, it would cause chaos in ways that neither Alex nor his father could imagine. The Martinez family went to bed that night, unaware that their quiet evening of homework help had just triggered the biggest mathematical crisis in galactic history. Above their house, the stars twinkled innocently, while across the vast expanse of space, alien scholars began to lose their minds over a high school calculus problem. Dr. Zix 427 paced across the floating platform in their private research chamber, all 6 tentacles twitching with nervous energy. The walls of the chamber, usually displaying peaceful scenes from across the galaxy, now showed hundreds of mathematical equations and diagrams. The alien mathematician had not slept for 3 cycles since receiving the strange transmission from Earth. Their normally blue skin had taken on a pale purple tinge, a sign of stress among their species. Scattered around the chamber were empty containers of stimulant juice, the Centaurian equivalent of coffee. "Professor, the latest results are in from the Orion Math Institute," announced their assistant, Krellate, floating through the door on anti-gravity discs. "They've tried 16 different approaches. All failed." Dr. Zix 427 waved a tentacle dismissively. "Of course they failed. They're still thinking in traditional galactic mathematics. This Earth problem requires something different." They paused before a particularly complex diagram. "Look at how they approach spatial relationships. It's completely backward, yet somehow it works." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out in countless academic institutions. At the prestigious Betelgeuse University, Professor Yith had locked herself in her office for 5 days, covering every surface with calculations. In the silicon mines of Vega, artificial intelligences ran billions of simulations, trying to understand the human approach to optimization. The problem wasn't that the aliens couldn't do the math. Their civilizations had mastered equations far more complex than anything on Earth. The issue was that the human way of thinking about the problem challenged their most basic mathematical assumptions. Call an emergency session of the Mathematical Council, Dr. Zix 427 decided, their voice trembling with excitement and frustration, and get me a direct link to the Galactic Archives. There must be something we're missing. Within hours, the grand meeting hall of the Centauri Academic Institute filled with the galaxy's brightest minds. Some attended in person, their various alien forms filling the gravity-adjusted seating pods. Others appeared as holograms, their images flickering above designated platforms. Dr. Zix 427 floated to the central podium. Behind them, a giant hologram displayed Alex's homework problem, the innocent-looking equations glowing in the dim light of the hall. Esteemed colleagues, they began, we face an unprecedented challenge. This mathematical transmission from the primitive Earth system has resisted all our standard analytical approaches. Their method of container optimization suggests an intuitive understanding of spatial relationships that contradicts our established principles. Murmurs rippled through the audience. A holographic representative from the silicon mine spoke up, their artificial voice filled with static. We have run 47 billion variations. The human approach appears to violate the galactic theory of dimensional constants. Exactly. Dr. Zix 427 extended their tentacles in emphasis. Yet their solution must work, or it wouldn't teach it to their young. We're missing something fundamental about how these humans think. In the back of the hall, an ancient mathematician from the Pleiades cluster began laughing, a sound like tinkling crystals. How delightful. After 10,000 years of galactic mathematics, we're being schooled by a species that has barely reached its own moon. As the debate grew more heated, none of the assembled scholars noticed that several of their colleagues had already suffered mental breakdowns trying to reconcile human mathematical intuition with their own understanding. In medical facilities across the galaxy, respected mathematicians lay babbling about containers and volumes, their minds overwhelmed by the simple elegance of human calculus. The crisis spread through the galactic academic community like a wildfire. By the end of the week, 3 more prestigious universities had shut down their mathematics departments. The halls of the Centauri Academic Institute, usually bustling with scholarly debate, fell silent as more professors took emergency leave. Dr. Zix 427 floated through the empty corridors, passing locked office doors marked with warning signs, Scholar in Mathematical Meditation, Do Not Disturb, or Mental Recovery in Progress. Their own mental state wasn't much better, but they refused to give up on the problem. Another one gone, Krell 8 reported, following behind with a datapad. Professor Lumix from the Quantum Theory Department found them in their office, surrounded by physical paper of all things, trying to solve the problem by hand. Dr. Zix 427 shuddered at the thought. Using physical writing materials was a sign of severe academic distress among their people. And the silicon mines? Any progress there? Worse, Krell 8 said quietly. They've had to shut down 30% of their processing cores. The human problem created logical loops that threatened their basic functioning. In the medical wing, Dr. Zix 427 visited their affected colleagues. The sight was disturbing. Brilliant minds, capable of solving complex 11-dimensional equations, now struggled with basic arithmetic. Some drew container shapes in the air with trembling appendages, muttering about volume optimization. The Galactic Council of Mathematics called an emergency session that afternoon. The massive virtual meeting space, filled with representatives from every major scientific institution in known space. Many appeared as holograms, while others sent robotic proxies. High Chancellor Venn, a being of pure energy contained in a crystal matrix, addressed the assembly. The situation has become critical. 1/3 of our most brilliant mathematical minds are now in treatment. We must contain this crisis before it spreads further. A hologram of Dr. Zix 427 appeared in the center of the chamber. Honorable colleagues, I believe we're approaching this wrong. Instead of trying to solve the problem using our methods, we need to understand how humans think. Protests erupted across the chamber. Impossible, shouted a crystalline being from Rigel. Their mathematics is primitive. Their most advanced computers are barely more than calculating rocks. Yet their homework problem has defeated our best minds, Dr. Zix 427 countered. Their intuitive understanding of spatial relationships suggests a completely different approach to mathematical thinking. In the medical wing, a young researcher made an interesting observation. The affected scholars who stopped trying to solve the problem through traditional methods started showing signs of recovery. Instead, when they approached it with what they called human intuition, they began making progress. The council debated for hours. Finally, High Chancellor Venn made an unprecedented decision. We must establish direct contact with Earth, not through our usual channels, but through their mathematical community. We need to understand how they think. As the council session ended, Dr. Zix 427 returned to their research chamber. They had already started learning Earth languages, preparing for the possibility of contact. On their main screen, Alex's homework problem still glowed, its seeming simplicity masking the revolutionary concepts that had thrown the galaxy's mathematical community into chaos. Meanwhile, in hospitals and recovery centers across the galaxy, more scholars arrived for treatment. The simple beauty of human mathematical intuition had broken their highly structured minds, forcing them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the universe. Catherine Foster sat up straight in her chair at NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Station, her coffee forgotten as she stared at the readings on her screen. For the past week, she had noticed unusual patterns in the background radiation they regularly monitored. At first, she thought it was just equipment malfunction, but now she was sure. These were artificial signals. "Hey, Joe," she called to her colleague across the room. "Come look at this pattern. Does it remind you of anything?" Joe rolled his chair over, squinting at the screen. The data showed regular pulses that seemed to repeat in a familiar way. Almost looks like math problems. But that's crazy. Catherine pulled up more data, not just any math problems. Look at these symbols. They're showing up consistently across different frequencies. They're trying to solve something. She spent the next few hours analyzing the signals, her excitement growing with each discovery. The aliens, whoever they were, seemed to be broadcasting their attempts to solve a mathematical problem. And strangest of all, the basic structure of the problem looked surprisingly familiar. By evening, Catherine had compiled enough evidence to call her supervisor. Within hours, NASA's main conference room filled with scientists, mathematicians, and government officials. Catherine stood before them, trying to keep her voice steady. The signals show thousands of attempts to solve what appears to be a container optimization problem, she explained, pointing to the data projected on the screen. What's remarkable is that this looks exactly like a standard calculus problem we give to high school students. The room erupted in murmurs. A general from the Pentagon leaned forward. "Are you saying aliens are trying to solve our math homework?" "Not exactly," Catherine said. "They're struggling with it. The signals show increasing complexity as they try different approaches, but somehow they can't seem to grasp our method of solving it." In the back of the room, a quiet voice spoke up. It was Dr. Martinez, called in as an expert on quantum computing. "I think I might know why we're seeing these signals," he said. His face had gone pale. "Last week, my son Alex was using my quantum computer for his calculus homework." The room fell silent as Dr. Martinez explained about the homework session and the unusual power fluctuations. Catherine quickly pulled up the timing of the first alien signals. They matched exactly with the night Alex had used the quantum computer. "Your quantum computer somehow broadcast the problem across space," Catherine said, amazement in her voice. "And now the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy are having a collective breakdown trying to solve it. The implications were staggering. Humanity's first contact with alien life was happening because of a high school math problem. The Pentagon general immediately began discussing security protocols, while NASA officials debated how to respond to the aliens. "We need to establish direct communication," Catherine insisted. "Think about it. They're not threatening us. They're asking for help understanding our mathematics. This could be the most peaceful first contact in history." As the meeting continued late into the night, Catherine couldn't help but smile at the irony. After all humanity's attempts to reach the stars, it was a simple homework problem that finally got the galaxy's attention. She looked at Dr. Martinez, who was already making calls to bring Alex and his teacher, Ms. Baker, into this historic situation. Alex sat in NASA's main conference room, feeling very small amid all the important people around him. His calculus notebook lay open on the table, filled with his original work on the container problem. Ms. Baker sat next to him, still looking a bit shocked by the whole situation. Catherine Foster stood at a large screen, explaining how they planned to communicate with the aliens. "We'll use Dr. Martinez's quantum computer to send a detailed solution. But first, we need Alex to explain his approach. The aliens need to understand how humans think about this problem." Alex looked at his teacher nervously. Ms. Baker smiled and nodded encouragingly. "Just explain it like you would to a classmate, Alex. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the best." Taking a deep breath, Alex walked to the whiteboard. He began drawing the problem, explaining each step as naturally as he could. "See, when I first looked at it, I thought about how water balloons change shape when you fill them. They don't stay perfectly round. They find the best shape on their own." In their chamber at the Centauri Academic Institute, Dr. Zix 427 watched the incoming transmission with all 6 tentacles trembling in excitement. The human child was explaining mathematics in a way they had never considered before, through simple, natural observations. "The container doesn't have to be a perfect cylinder or cube," Alex continued, sketching more diagrams. "Nature already knows the most efficient shapes, like how soap bubbles always form perfect spheres, or how beehives use hexagons, because they're the most efficient way to use space." As Alex's explanation was broadcast across the galaxy, something remarkable happened. Alien mathematicians began to understand. They saw how humans connected abstract mathematical concepts to the physical world around them, using intuition and observation alongside pure calculation. Dr. Zix 427 suddenly floated up in excitement, their color changing to bright blue. Of course, they don't separate mathematical theory from natural observation. Their intuitive understanding of spatial relationships comes from their physical experience of the universe. Catherine watched the incoming alien responses with growing excitement. They're getting it. The recovery rate among affected mathematicians has jumped to 85%. In hospitals across the galaxy, alien scholars who had been babbling about impossible calculations began to recover. The human approach to mathematics, once seen as primitive, was revealing itself to be revolutionary in its elegant simplicity. Alex finished his explanation by solving the problem step by step, just as he had planned to do for his homework. He used calculus formulas alongside practical examples, showing how human mathematics bridged the gap between pure theory and natural observation. Ms. Baker wiped away a proud tear as her student finished the solution. The NASA scientists in the room sat in stunned silence, while the alien responses poured in. Messages of thanks, congratulations, and requests for more mathematical exchanges. Dr. Martinez put his hand on his son's shoulder. "You just solved your homework problem in front of the whole galaxy and taught them something new in the process." Alex grinned, still hardly believing what had happened. "Does this mean I get extra credit?" he asked Ms. Baker, making everyone in the room laugh. The laughter was interrupted by Catherine's excited voice. "Everyone, look at this. The aliens are sending us something. It's an invitation. They want to establish a permanent mathematical exchange program between Earth and the galactic academic community. 6 months later, Alex walked across the MIT campus, still amazed by how much his life had changed. Students from dozens of countries hurried past him, mixed with the newly arrived alien exchange students who floated, crawled, or glided between classes. The mathematics building had been extensively modified to accommodate the various alien species. Anti-gravity platforms allowed floating beings like Dr. Zix 427 to teach at comfortable heights, while temperature-controlled pods kept the crystalline scholars from Rigel at their preferred -100 degrees. Alex headed to his favorite class, Comparative Mathematical Thinking Across Species. The course was taught jointly by Ms. Baker, who had taken a sabbatical from her high school job, and Dr. Zix 427, who had become Earth's biggest supporter in the galactic academic community. Today, Ms. Baker announced to the mixed class of humans and aliens, "We'll explore how different species visualize four-dimensional shapes." She smiled at Alex. "And remember, there are no wrong approaches, just different ways of seeing the same truth." During lunch, Alex sat with his new study group. Beth Chen, another freshman from California, was explaining Earth sports to a silicon-based student from Vega. Next to them, a tentacled mathematician used 3 arms to eat, while using the other 3 to solve equations in the air. Catherine Foster had become a regular guest lecturer at MIT, teaching a popular course on quantum communications. She often joined Alex for coffee, eager to hear his fresh perspective on the latest mathematical theories arriving from across the galaxy. Dr. Martinez's quantum computer had been moved to a special research facility on campus. Scientists had finally figured out how it had broadcast Alex's homework, a unique quantum resonance that nobody had thought possible. Now it served as the main communication hub between Earth and galactic academia. That evening, Alex walked into the newly built Galactic Exchange Center for his regular video call with high schools across Earth and other worlds. Teenage aliens gathered around screens on hundreds of planets, eager to learn about human mathematical intuition. The key is to not overthink it, Alex explained to his interstellar audience. Look at the world around you. Nature already knows the most efficient solutions. We just need to learn how to see them. Ms. Baker stood at the back of the room, watching proudly. The aliens had officially named this teaching method Martinez Baker Intuitive Mathematics, in honor of Alex and his teacher. It was now being taught in schools across the galaxy, revolutionizing how species thought about mathematical problems. After the call, Alex checked his phone and grinned. His sister Olivia had sent him a message. She needed help with her geometry homework. She joked about whether this one would cause another galactic crisis. As Alex headed back to his dorm room, he passed the campus museum. Inside, protected by a special force field, sat his original calculus notebook. Next to it was Ms. Baker's homework assignment that had started it all. The display plaque read, "The Problem That United the Galaxy," a testament to human intuition. Outside, the setting sun painted the sky orange, and the first stars began to appear. Somewhere up there, alien students were looking down at Earth with new respect, learning that sometimes the simplest way of thinking could unlock the deepest mysteries of the universe, all because of a high school homework problem that had dared to challenge the greatest minds in space.